This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. If you click on the link in the description below, it'll take you to their store and they'll know I sent you there. Hello everyone, I'm Hone, and it is Saturday, and that means it's time for another edition of the History of the Banned and Restricted list. I'm sorry about not getting one of these up the last couple of weeks. The Throne of Eldraine set review took up a lot of my time, but now I should be back on track to do one of these a week, at least until the next set review. Last time, we looked at 2008 and 2009. 2 years dominated by bannings and restrictions meant to make blue decks less effective, as well as the year that Sensei's Divining Top started to become an issue. This time we're looking at 2010, which was a relatively quiet year, a calm before the storm that would be 2011, I guess. That's going to be a year that probably requires more than one video. Anyway, only 2 cards that had never been banned or restricted in any format were added to the banned and restricted list in 2010. In June of 2010, 2 cards would be banned in the extended format: Sword of the Meek and Hypergenesis. Both of these were cards that got broken by new cards that were printed in Magic's newest block at the time, Alara. After the printing of Alara, these 2 cards went from not seeing any play to being cards that needed to be banned as a result of being part of broken combos. Let's start with Sword of the Meek, which was for a long time a fairly unassuming card. It has a neat and flavorful design. Coming back from the graveyard and attaching itself to your Meek 1/1s is a cool effect, but no one had done anything with it while it was in Standard, and by the time of this banning, the sword had been around for more than 3 years and hadn't seen play at all in any format. However, in 2010, Thopter Foundry was printed, and suddenly, Sword of the Meek was a serious problem. You could now pay 1 mana, sacrifice Sword of the Meek, get a Thopter, gain 1 life, the sword returns to attach to the 1/1 Thopter you just made, and then you can do it again for every 1 mana that you have. Now, this isn't the kind of combo that goes infinite and wins the game on the spot, but it is incredibly efficient and not that difficult to pull off. Both cards only cost 2 mana. Just think of Thopter Foundry as a Bitter Blossom on steroids, at least when you have Sword of the Meek lying around, and that's how good that effect is when you aren't really giving up any of your artifacts. In 2010, the Thopter Depths deck emerged and extended. This deck actually ran 2 really easy to pull off combos, one of them involving Dark Depths, and the other one being the Sword of the Meek and Thopter Foundry. The banning was primarily meant to weaken this deck, so that it only had 1 combo it could rely on instead of 2 hyper-efficient, way too easy to assemble combos. It remained banned and extended for the rest of that format's short existence, and it was also banned in the inaugural banned and restricted list for Modern, which debuted in 2011. More on that next time. It actually got unbanned in Modern in 2016 and didn't do a whole lot. That is, until the release of Modern Horizons and the unbanning of Stoneforge Mystic in Modern. Those 2 things combined to make it pretty easy to pull off the old Thopter combo, which appears right now in the Tier 1 Modern deck called Urza. This deck combines the Thopter combo with Urza Lord High Artificer. Because Urza makes it so all untapped artifacts can tap for blue mana, this means that Urza plus this combo does actually go infinite, unlike the old versions of the combo. Right now, it doesn't seem likely the combo is about to be banned out of the format again, but it will be interesting to see what happens going forward. Next, let's look at Hypergenesis, which has a lot of parallels with Sword of the Meek. Both of them are cards from Time Spiral block that went largely untouched until 2010 before being broken, thanks to the printing of a card or cards in Alara block. Hypergenesis is part of a pretty fun cycle of cards from Time Spiral that have no mana cost, and thus can't be cast from your hand. Instead, you have to use the suspend mechanic to get the powerful effect out of the card. That means you have to wait several turns for it to actually do anything. With suspend, Hypergenesis is actually a fairly balanced card. However, Alara block introduced a mechanic that made it so you could cast this and other cards in this cycle immediately without ever having to worry about suspending them or any of that nonsense. That mechanic was, of course, Cascade. Since Hypergenesis and the rest of the cycle have a converted mana cost of 0, if you cast a card with Cascade, like, say, Violent Outburst, and you make sure your deck has no other cards in it with a converted mana cost of less than 3, you're guaranteed to hit a Hypergenesis every time. This means that for every card in your deck that has Cascade, it is essentially a copy of Hypergenesis, making it very easy to cast the card and making a combo way too consistent. Wizards has since admitted that they completely overlooked how easily the Cascade spells could be used to abuse the old suspend cards from Time Spiral block. Anyway, once a player cascades into Hypergenesis, the player who cast it basically always wins, as both players can put stuff onto the battlefield, but The Hypergenesis player is ready for this, and they run creatures like Bogardan Hellkite and Angel of Despair, which just kill all of the other player's creatures when they come into play, and that means the opponent's going to be dead in a hurry from these huge flyers. This was a very difficult deck to beat because it was so fast and consistent. Turns out 3 mana to pretty consistently put out 3 massive creatures, or more, is a pretty good deal. As a result of this, Hypergenesis got banned and extended in 2010 and would be banned in Modern's inaugural ban list in 2011, just like Sword of the Meek. Unlike the Sword, though, which eventually got unbanned, Hypergenesis remains banned in Modern today, and it doesn't seem very likely that that will be changing anytime soon. Cascade makes it far too easy to cast such a powerful spell. Well, that does it for 2010. Next time, we'll be looking at the first part of 2011, which was a very busy year between the printing of some busted cards and the creation of the Modern format. It will take us a couple of weeks to get through all the changes that were made that year. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and share it so that others can enjoy it too. If you want to make sure you catch the rest of this series, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to make sure you are up to date on this series, you should see the playlist on your screen now. Thanks for watching.